Hello and welcome to Walk to Cinema podcast. This episode we're going to be talking about revisionist westerns. And you might be asking, what is that?
I certainly was.
Well, it's the opposite of traditional, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's looking at history with a new eye, looking at different identities of what a western can be.
Right. Because I feel like when you think of westerns, typical westerns, you're thinking of the John Wayne type westerns where it's about like a cowboy who is a good guy, you know, whether he is mistaken for a bad guy, we, the audience, know he's a good guy. And then there's, you know, the evil forces that are trying to take him down.
It's a very simplistic black and white way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it always offers the romance. It always offers a very clear view of good and bad. And with a revisionist western, you don't have that. A lot of times you don't really have good and bad. It's more ambiguous than that. I think that's like the easiest way to make it a revisionist western is to make characters ambiguous and not know who's good and who's bad.
Right, where our main characters aren't necessarily like the best people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that would be especially true for our first film that we're going to cover. We're covering 3 different films that kind of fit this category. So our first one being McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which came out in 1971.
Yeah, this is like a classic anti-western.
Mm-hmm.
It really does not do what a western does. It's about industry. It's about the creation of a town, pretty much.
Yeah.
Using the old western businesses of a saloon, a whorehouse, gambling. So it's creating this town that Christians would call evil.
Right. And something that I would say most of the like traditional westerns when they came out in like the 1930s and mostly in the 30s, I would say it was where you get the bulk of the westerns that come out happening. So like those types of movies, I don't think I've ever seen you get prostitutes in those ones or like former prostitutes, but you don't necessarily see like the real nitty grittiness of it.
This is just a look at that. Like I can't think of a movie out of the top of my mind. I'm sure there are others, but a movie like this that shows just a businessman coming into a town and like wanting to make his fortune by any means necessary.
Yeah, and
and it's not by killing. It's not by being a cowboy or a lawman or anything like that. He's creating his own like business of what he knows how to do. He knows how to gamble, and then Mrs. Miller comes and she knows how to run a whorehouse.
Yeah. And we kind of see like throughout the movie that our kind of main character, John McCabe, is just a straight up liar. Like he kind of paints this facade of that he's like he's with it. He knows what he's doing. He's killed in the past. All ends up being false, and his kind of facade very quickly becomes, you know, seen as what it is.
He kind of takes over this town just by being louder and smarter than all of them. Because they're all kind of dumb. They're all just men that want sex and gambling.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what they are. And he's smarter than them. Not like he's a genius or anything, but he's smart enough to be able to manipulate them into thinking what he wants them to think. And he's loud enough that they don't even question him.
Yeah, and I think that he kind of understands what the needs of the people are at this point, because it's just a whole bunch of dudes, essentially. There's not very many women, or any women, so he's
But we
just
see him
like,
kind of fail early on, because he goes to a town and buys 3 prostitutes.
Yes.
And it's like kind of miserable. Like they're just intense in the mud and the snow, and when Mrs. Miller comes, she's the one that really builds up that part of the business, the part that makes the real money.
Yeah, because that's kind of like how this town is kind of become what it is. Like later on in the film, we have a character that comes up to the town and is kind of like, oh, I heard you guys got the real fancy pleasure house up here.
Yeah.
Is that true? And they're like, yeah, come on. And he spends like days there, like sampling all the women.
And they make fun of his small endowments.
Yes.
But yeah, the McCabe character is not a traditional Western star.
Right.
Warren Beatty is not a traditional Western star, but the character in itself is like not that smart. Like, you think he is at the beginning because he manipulates everyone, but you realize he's not, and he's not really making money, and it's Mrs. Miller that makes the money, and then he kind of bottles the sale, where a big company wants to buy the whole town because they want the mines, and they go through him because he's like the major businessman, but he's not good enough to know how to negotiate with them, and he ends up being...
He overplays himself a little bit.
Yeah, he ends up being headhunted by the company. They just hire people to kill him.
Yeah, because they kind of recognize that he has literally no idea.
Yeah, they know he's dumb
works.
because they're even smarter than him, right?
Yeah.
He's smart in comparison to the miners that work there, but he's not smart in comparison to the businessmen from the big towns.
Yeah.
So they see right through him. And then we get this more Western-y facet of the film where he's being hunted down by the evil no-do-gooders.
Yeah, like the headhunters, which are, there's 3 of them. There's always like a kid.
Yeah.
And there's always like an older guy that like gets stuff done, and then you got like the wild card. I feel like that's kind of like a theme that I see in a lot of Western movies.
Yeah, the villains are kind of characters, but I wonder if that's on purpose.
It could be. I don't know. I think that it at the very least, it seems like it would be something that you can kind of recognize within a Western. And so, you know, I don't think that to be an anti-Western per se, you don't need to have everything be different. You can just kind of take the elements, I suppose, that you know, work, I guess, for the story that they're trying to tell. But yeah, this movie, I thought it was okay. It felt, the first hour, I feel like goes by really, really quickly. It's like him setting up the town, you kind of getting to know the McCabe and Mrs. Miller characters and how they operate, and how like he might be the face of the operation, but then she kind of slowly becomes like the face and the brains, I would say, even to like the townspeople, because I don't know, maybe it's not supposed to be like this, but there was a point where the townsman kind of asks a girl like, oh, are you one of Mrs. Miller's girls, and not like McCabe's girls, even though McCabe is the one that owns the brothel. Like, it's still kind of seen that this is purely like Mrs. Miller's doing, you know?
Yeah, she's the brains.
Yeah, and then I think she
it's
becomes
because she's
the face.
British, and then she has her own opium addiction.
Yeah,
which is part of her downfall. And his downfall is just
being stupid.
Yeah, being stupid.
Literally.
and being in love with Mrs. Miller.
Yeah, because they end up developing this kind of relationship that, like, it kind of seems like they both like each other, but she still makes him pay for services and whatnot.
I think it's her keeping up the facade of let's not mix pleasure and business.
Yeah, potentially.
I think it's just her playing coy, kinda.
Yeah.
But she also gets annoyed with him, I mean, because he's dumb.
Yeah. And she sees that he's dumb when he comes back and is like, oh, I turned down a $5,000 offer for the town. And she's like, are you stupid? Like, do you even know who these people are?
She warns him, too. She warns him that they'd rather kill you than play games. And
yeah.
he still goes back and plays
games.
He just tries it again, because he's a gambler, I suppose. And
yeah.
Then she's right, obviously.
Yeah, because they come back with a higher offer. They like, we can do $62.50.
Those are big numbers.
Yeah, $6,250. But he's like, I was thinking more like $14,000, $15,000, and they're like, no.
And then he tries to negotiate with
the killer, with the killer that he doesn't know.
Yeah, and you see the panic in him. You see Warren Beatty just panicking.
Yeah.
And it's kind of obvious that he's in too deep at that point.
Yeah, and then he kind of has to become what he kind of touted himself to be in the first place, where he has to become smart enough to kill these guys that are after him.
Yeah, and I think this is the part where it does get... I guess it speeds up and it gets more action-packed, but it gets more boring to me.
Yeah, I would agree.
I prefer the building of the town and the intricacy of what they're trying to do more than him trying to survive.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I think like the first hour goes by really, really quickly, but then the second hour kind of, to me, drags on. Like, I feel like especially the bottom, like, 30 minutes really dragged. Because I think at this point you kind of understand where this is going. And I think also the ending's kind of fitting because he ends up being able to kill all these people. He ends up being able to kind of get away, I guess, from the hired hitmen. However, the last one, the final one, ends up fatally shooting him.
Yeah, and he dies
or
in
mortally
the snow.
injuring him. So then he dies in the snow. But then you also see that the town doesn't need him anymore. They were able to work together to put the church fire out.
Yeah, and I think that's the imagery of the ending, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a Christian ending where they're so worried about saving the church that they can't save a man that created the town through not evil but sin.
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of fitting that they're able, like, he dies and, like, the town is going to be fine. Like, the town is going to be fine.
And Mrs. Miller is also kind of not going to be fine. I don't know if she dies. I don't think she dies immediately, but she's addicted to drugs.
Yeah, so I do think that kind of is, like, maybe this, like, town isn't going to have... Like, I think they'll still have the brothel.
Not just the business, but it doesn't have to be the reason the town exists.
Yeah, I think
especially because the town is named after the church.
Yeah, it's the Presbyterian Church. That's the name of the town. Presbyterian Church, Washington. Which... Washington. Love Washington. Beautiful state.
Yes. The snow in this is beautiful.
It seems like it'd be such a pain, though, to live.
Yes, but you get to wear those gigantic fur coats, so it's kind of worth it.
Yeah. But this, I believe, did get an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, he did.
For Best Actress.
Supporting?
No, just Best Actress. Okay. Yeah. For Julie Christie, who plays Mrs. Miller. And...
I guess she's a title character. It would be main. Yeah.
I think that, it's somewhat fitting, I feel, to have this be kind of a Best Actress nomination. She does well in it. I just feel like she's not... Like, I feel like her character's not super fleshed out.
I feel like it's not a main character, really. If it wasn't a title character, I don't know if people would call her a main character.
Yeah.
It's really McCabe's story. And the town story more than hers. But I don't know. She's good. Her look is very immediate, like, oh, she's the head boss.
Yeah.
Like, immediately as you see her, like, oh, she's not like a prostitute like the ones he hired.
She's like more sophisticated and stuff, I feel. And then she's got the Cockney accent, so it's kind of like she's very exotic in the way.
Yeah, she's very obviously British.
Yeah. And then, I don't know. But I give this a 6 out of 10.
Very offensive rating to a lot of film history lovers.
I just don't think that it didn't, like, captivate me. Like, I did like the first half, but then, I mean, I just feel like the other movies that we've watched for this episode just captivated and entertained me a little bit more, so this one just didn't do it for me.
I think this is just the one I think of when I think of revisionist Western, especially anti-Western, because the other ones we're talking about aren't necessarily anti-Western.
Yeah.
But this is like a pillar in that. It's one of the early big names in revisionist Western, and I think it's just, I don't know, I really like it. Conceptually, it's fantastic. And then there's a lot of elements to it that make it kind of, like, iconic and rememberable. Like, the outfits being, like, so outlandish. The music being kind of just offbeat for what you'd expect. It's more of a, like, chill 70s music. Less than, like, a shoot 'em up Western music.
Yeah.
So it's very identifiable. I don't know. I really like it. I gave it an 8. It's grown on me since I first watched it, for sure. I don't think it's going to grow on me much more. I don't think it's like a fantastic film.
Yeah.
But I think it's really good, and it's like, it is fantastic in relationship to what it's trying to do.
Right.
It does it fantastically, but as a movie in general, I still think it's really good. And Altman is a great director. And we'll be talking about him probably more
in the future.
Yeah.
But on to our next one.
Another fantastic director, one of my favorites. This was the movie we're debating which one should go in this spot. And I just like Jim Jarmusch so much that we went with Dead Man.
Mm-hmm. Which came out in 1995, so we are jumping quite a bit ahead.
Yes, when Westerns were not a very significant genre anymore.
And it still was, I'd say before, because, I mean, we did kind of have and still kind of see, like, Westerns become more of a genre to explore. I would say, like, in the 2010s, I remember seeing a lot of Western or Western-adjacent films come out. And
I mean, even in the 90s, there was Best Picture winners that were Westerns, but...
Sure. Maybe, I guess. But, you know...
But this is not what you think of when you think of a Western.
No, not really.
This is kind of a symbolic film for maybe purgatory. That's what I get in a way. I get that this is kind of a purgatory film. And the dead man is a literal dead man.
Yeah, like he's going to die.
I think he's already dead. I think it's kind of he's dead and he's going through this mission of good and evil to figure out if he goes to heaven or hell.
I suppose, because it does say, okay, so to kind of give like the basic overarching plot, we have Johnny Depp playing our main character, William Blake.
Which is a significant name.
Yes, William Blake was a poet.
Yes, he was an English poet.
Yes, and like I don't even know how old, to be honest. I
don't think much earlier than the setting of the film.
Not super much earlier, but either way, he goes to this town, he gets wrapped up in like a killing of like the town guy that is really significant, like his son. He ends up killing his son.
Yeah.
Unknowingly, kind of.
He kills his son kind of to defend himself.
Kind of.
And it's kind of implied that the son could have or could have not have killed him too.
Yeah.
We don't know that. I mean, from just if you're taking it at face value, you didn't kill him, right? Yeah. But I feel like there's implications that he might have killed him.
Sure.
The Indian character in this, Nobody, that's his name.
The Native American spirit guide, yes.
Tells him that he got killed
by
this white man. And I don't know. It's kind of ambiguous there.
Yeah, it is a little bit ambiguous. It's kind of like...
The whole movie is, like, hazy.
Yeah.
And, like, you can't really grasp at it too much. And I don't think you should. I think you should kind of just take it as it comes.
Well, I think Jim Jarmusch describes it as, like, a psychedelic Western. Where it's, you know, kind of that free-flowing, I guess. But... I don't know, if we take it as like a as like a literal he is dead and he's kind of going through this, there are like a little bit of stuff that I don't know how exactly it fits into the events that happen, because he does end up actually killing like 2 US Marshals, and like there's again the 3 dudes that are hired to kill him that have like their own side story.
Yeah, he goes from this accountant to someone that becomes really good at killing by the end of the movie.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, how the purgatory type thing, like, works exactly. I do agree that there is, like, some type of symbolism for that, potentially, because he is kind of in this liminal space of, like, this twilight space, I guess, between living and death, with nobody kind of helping him through it, or at least like helping him get to the other side, or assuring that he gets to the other side. So I don't know, it was very interesting. It was a very interesting movie to watch.
It's very chill.
Yeah.
It's very much of a mood setting film where you can just take the vibes of it and kind of just sit on your couch and watch it and not have to like warp your brain.
Mm-hmm.
I like it a lot. I think it's I like the word hazy. I think it's a good description for it. I like what happens. I like the way they talk.
Yeah. No.
And it's really funny too. It's not a comedy.
But it feels like it sometimes.
Sometimes it feels like, okay, are you trying to make like a serious comedy joke here, or is it just like a one-off that I'm supposed to laugh at but not? I don't know. It feels like a comedy even though it's not classified as that anywhere that I've seen.
Yeah.
I still find it very funny at points.
Yeah.
I still find like when he kills the man that gets him into trouble, he misses twice.
Yeah, and the guy just like stands there.
Yeah, and it's really funny to me. He just misses twice, and the guy is so heartbroken that his ex-girlfriend is sleeping with someone else that he doesn't even move.
Yeah, he just kind of is like, oh, I guess I'll just sit here and let it happen. No, that was funny. There's like some other moments I feel like are funny too. Like so they have like the 3 hired hitman to go after him. And so we have like the kid character who's like just young and ruthless kind of, I guess. But he's like inexperienced. And then you have the kind of wild card that won't shut up. And then you have the older guy that like gets the job done. He has proven himself, I guess, in a way. But he has a weird, quirky thing that I guess is different, where it's alluded that he slept with both of his parents and
after killing him.
No, he slept with both his parents, killed them, and ate them. I think
he didn't kill them first?
I think so. I think it was that he slept with both his parents, killed him, and ate him, and that he is like just a cannibal in general.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene where he does end up killing his like 2 partners, I guess, because they're not really partners. They are just like individual killers.
They're 3 lone wolves that come together.
Yeah, that are forced to come together. And so he ends up killing both of them. And in like the scene where he kills like the wild card guy, you just see him munching on a arm and a hand, and it just kind of looks really goofy to me. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I guess he does kind of play like the demon character.
Mm-hmm.
If we're taking this like purgatory allegory, I guess. He is like, I guess, the demon that's trying to drag him to hell, whereas nobody is the like angel, I guess.
Nobody is corrupt. I think the use of tobacco in this movie alludes to corruption and maybe just straight up evil.
Potentially.
Because they keep asking William Blake, do you have tobacco? And he says no, because he's pure.
Yeah. But
I feel like asking for tobacco is kind of a meaning of corruption, and the whole tobacco in general becomes corruption, because at the end William Blake asks for tobacco at a shopkeeper, and that's what ends up getting the shopkeeper killed, because he's hiding the tobacco from the Indian.
Right.
So there's a lot of allusion towards tobacco, and tobacco can mean a lot of things. I think it means evil. Maybe. Or just corruption in general.
But then at the end, like, when William Blake has been put into this boat to be pushed into the Pacific Ocean to go to, like, the spirit side, he, like, tells nobody that he has tobacco now.
Mm-hmm.
And then nobody's like, you're gonna need it when you get there. So, like, I don't know if it's 100%, like, if it means that, you know what I mean?
Maybe he's going to hell. Maybe we got it all wrong and he's sending him straight to hell.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so, because, like, the whole thing was that the reason why nobody helps him is because he was so enamored with William Blake, the English poet's, like, poetry, that he thinks that this William Blake is just a reincarnation of that William Blake, and that's why he needs to help him, because, like, he helped William Blake's poetry helped him when he was in his time of need. Yeah. And stuff like that. So I don't know. I really don't know what that could all mean. It is very
we don't
questionable.
Need to know. We don't need to know. That's part of the fun.
That's true.
And that's part of why the movie is good. because it doesn't try to explain you anything.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, like, it just shows you stuff for what it is, and then you can put your meaning into it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not such an allegorical film where you don't understand what's happening because the director's trying so hard to show you that it's not a literal thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch this movie just for what it is literally, you still follow the story. And then you can give meaning to certain characters, you can give meaning to actions, and meaning to, like, what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. You can just also watch it as what it is, a guy trying to escape.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But, you know, I don't know. This film had some interesting choices, I guess, for some actors.
Mm-hmm.
We have Iggy Pop as a character and Billy Bob Thornton,
Yes.
which was fun to see.
They're their own little gang.
They are their own little gang. And, I mean, their acting was, I'd say they were probably, like, those characters that pop up there seem to me like the worst part of the movie. Not necessarily the worst part of the movie, but like the worst acting.
They're kind of comedic relief, though.
Sure, but I just felt like it didn't like fit the thematics, I suppose.
I mean,
and then,
they all ask him for tobacco and keep insisting if they have tobacco, and they kind of imply they might rape him because he looks like a girl because he has long hair.
Yeah.
And it's like really soft, nice hair.
Yeah, they were all fighting over who gets to have him, and like that causes like a whole issue. But I mean, there are other things that I don't particularly like about this movie. I don't like the kind of like fading in and out where it kind of fades to black and then it's like a new scene and then it fades to black and then it's a new scene. Like that kind of bothers me in a way. I mean, that's kind of nitpicky, I suppose, but I just feel like it takes me out.
I definitely saw it happen a couple of times, but it wasn't enough to take me out.
I feel like it took me out a fair amount because once I noticed it, well, I mean, the whole beginning part is a whole bunch of like fading in and outs, but that's because he's like sleeping.
Yeah, it's like falling asleep.
But like on the train, on his train ride into this town at the end of the line, and you know that it kind of makes sense in that regard, but then it just keeps doing that. And I don't recall if it has anything to do with like sleep or being knocked out or whatever, but I don't feel like it was.
No, it wasn't. It changed between characters.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't like my favorite stylistic choice just because I felt like it was too jarring is a harsh word, but jarring.
I was okay with it. I like it a lot. I give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's really funny. It's also just a good story, just straight up in the literal sense. It's not overcomplicated in any... It's literally a guy trying to get away, and he meets characters along the way, but that's it. But that works, especially because they're good characters. I like the character of Nobody. I like the character of William Blake.
Yeah.
And I like the black and white cinematography of this a lot. It's good to me. I really enjoy pretty much every aspect.
I give this a 7 out of 10, and I would say that this was probably my favorite that we watched for this episode, which maybe my favorite episode, favorite movie being a 7 for this episode is a little low, but like I think I've made it clear before that like the Western setting isn't my favorite like type of thing. I know I say a lot of stuff isn't my favorite type, but I just have like a very specific like vibe and feel that I like to watch, and this isn't necessarily that kind of vibe or feel, but I did have a good time. It is kind of like one of those endings where it's like bittersweet, where it's not really like a happy ending. Neither was our last film. Like our two main characters so far have died, and it's not really like nobody has like a good happy ending. Like the story for all the characters that you meet kind of just ends, especially in this one, because like pretty much every character that you're introduced to when it comes to like the cell, the girl that he sleeps with, the guy that was her fiance, our main character, Nobody, they all die. All the villains die. Everybody dies. So I mean, it does like wrap up in that sense, but I don't know. It's kind of depressing.
I don't know. 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 I don't they all die. Always. I think in every movie we're going to talk about, most of the characters die.
Yeah.
That's just how it is in the awful, awful world of the Wild West.
Yeah. But then that finally brings us to our last one, which is 2015's Bone Tomahawk. It is a film that was directed by S. Craig Zahler. I think I'm saying that right. And it stars Kurt Russell, pretty much. Kurt Russell.
No, it stars Patrick Wilson and David Arquette.
Sure. But, Kurt Russell's on the poster. He's like #1 billing. It's... I don't know. I had seen this movie. I had seen this movie poster before.
Right.
And the one character, or the one person I could name you in the film before I watched it was Kurt Russell.
We could have also picked, from the same year, Kurt Russell's Eightful Eight.
Yeah, sure.
But you've seen Eightful Eight, so there's no fun in that. I picked this one that I really like instead to make you watch. Mm-hmm. First, I think we should talk about the criticism this gets about being racist.
Yeah.
About being kind of a Trump movie. Which, I mean, just watching the movie without watching interviews or reading stuff, it's just a good movie to me.
Right.
The racism, I think it's ambiguous in the film on purpose because it's not a Western. From like the point where it's a hero trying to kill a villain.
Yeah.
So the heroes, aka the leads, are ambiguous, and some of them are just pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And one of them is like very obviously racist.
Yeah, like very obviously racist.
And I don't think, because people say, oh, the racist gets a good ending. I don't think he does. I think he kind of just dies. I don't really feel.
Yeah, he does just die.
One of the last things he says is he names how many Indians he's killed, and I don't think that's him getting a good ending.
Yeah.
I don't think that's us forgiving him for being racist. I still think he's an asshole when he dies, so maybe that's just me.
Potentially.
But it's not me trying to excuse it if you see it for being racist. Then, I mean, that's your perspective. I'm not really trying to change your mind here. I just don't really see it, but maybe I'm blind to something. I'm missing something very obvious.
Yeah, and I think they kind of try to subvert like some of the racism that could have happened by creating a tribe of Native Americans that doesn't exist. Like, it's not like a specific group that's like a real group.
No, it's literally 7 guys.
Yeah.
It's a group of cave dwellers. There's 7 of them.
No, well, I think there's 12 of them plus 2 women that
and they're
torture.
Well, the women are just terrible.
Yeah. Literally, like, awful.
They get their limbs cut out, and they're just used for creating more members, really. So.
They're quadriplegics, and then they have their eyes gouged out with stakes, and they can just, like...
No, it's an awful visual.
It's a really awful visual.
And I was kind of upset that the Patrick Wilson character doesn't just put them out of their misery.
Yeah.
When he walks past them, but...
They just kind of let them live, which, like... maybe sounds awful that you're like, no, you needed to kill them too, but, like... That's such an awful existence, and there's no way that they would survive, because they can't. They were meant to not survive without, like, these dudes.
But we're talking about, like, the kind of twist ending. It's not a twist, but it subverges...
I suppose.
The genre. So it goes from a Western, like a road trip Western for the majority of it, to just horror. Straight up horror in the mountains.
It's a horror Western.
Hills have eyes.
Yeah.
Just like horrifying sounds.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, they're human, but you kind of see them as mythical for a while.
Yeah, because like they have this very like weird screeching sound that you don't know how they're doing.
Which is the bone tomahawk in their windpipe.
Yeah.
That's from an animal, I guess.
Yeah.
And they put it in their windpipe and creates this fucking blood curdling sound.
Yeah. But basically, you know, the story starts off with, you know, setting up that kind of like, I would say supernatural element where you're not sure if it's something supernatural, if it's like plausible.
And I think even by the end, you're not supposed to be sure if it's supernatural or not, but I think it's not. But
yeah,
I don't know if you're supposed to be 100% sure.
Maybe.
But yeah, at the beginning, you're definitely not. You see the character of David Arquette surviving and his friend, played by the late Sid Haig, being killed. And it's this that creates the rest of the story, really, because
Yeah.
David Arquette escapes, and he kind of leads them to this town.
Yeah, and then they end up kidnapping this Native American tribe, the troglodytes, end up kidnapping 3 of the town's citizens. So
2 of the town citizens plus
2 of the
vagrant.
towns plus the vagrant. So you have like the vagrant, and then you have the wife of a guy in town that broke his leg or something.
She's
and
also
the daughter of the
daughter
doctor,
of the
so
doctor.
she has some medical training. And then the assistant deputy,
something like that. He gets killed,
or the
really
deputy,
fast.
of the town. And then so like the sheriff, the like assistant to the assistant deputy, I guess, or like, you know, third in command.
He gets a terrible ending.
Yeah,
and it's really fast, and we just don't get to know him too well.
Yeah, I suppose. And then the guy, the racist guy, and then the husband of the woman that gets kidnapped, and they go on this kind of, you know, trudge through the Western world to. Yeah,
it's supposed to be pretty straightforward. You get on your horse, you go, but they end up losing their horses because the racist guy is racist.
Yeah.
Which is kind of right, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of that's what people might be like, oh yeah, he's being racist towards the Mexican people, but at the end of the story, he is right. The Mexican guys were trying to steal the horses.
Yeah, I suppose.
But maybe not. Maybe we can assume that they stole the horses as revenge. Yeah, and not because they were trying to do it in the first place.
But whatever. I mean,
that's reading too much into it for me.
But they kind of go on this thing. Arthur is the husband of the girl, and he kind of becomes our like final girl kind of character. Because obviously the stuff does not end well for anybody. They meet they get captured by the people, the tribe. And we have this very horrific scene where they scalp and like gut Nick, the deputy or whatever.
They split him in half.
They like split him in half from like the bottom like down, and it's just such a. I had to like not watch it because I got like really squeamish. I did not enjoy it. The whole movie is
pretty gruesome. Like even the early kills are very on screen.
I suppose, but I felt like nothing prepared me for that.
No, that one was the most brutal. And then there's also Kurt Russell getting a boiling hot flask stuck into his gut. That was also pretty brutal, but
not as brutal. Like after after the filleting and stuff like that, I was like, nothing can faze me at this point.
Once you realize it's a horror movie, like the last act and it becomes a horror movie, there's a lot more gore because there's slit throats and there's shootings and whatever. But once like all those gore happen, I feel like that's when I get really excited for it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not a traditional Western. This movie, it's very. It's
different. Not only obviously because it reverts the genres. It's also not a traditional Western to begin with because of the characters. Because no character is really a good guy. I mean, Kurt Russell is kind of an asshole. He shoots a guy in the leg.
Yeah, just for
and
fun.
People are like, "Why'd you do that?" It's like, I don't know, because I should.
Because I'm the sheriff, and that's what I do. Yeah, and he's kind of like, I mean, they all kind of make mistakes that are just kind of like, "Why'd you do that?" You know,
because they're human. I mean, it is a deeper look into the Western myth, and then it becomes like this bonkers Hills Have Eyes reimagining of a native tribe in the caves. I don't know, it's just kind of a brutal in your face movie.
Yeah.
And it goes by really fast and it's really fun to me. This is a movie that's more than 2 hours, I think.
It's a little bit more than 2 hours.
But it doesn't feel like it at all.
I'd say that's fair.
I can see some people saying it's slow because it is a road trip movie in like the second act. But I think the first act is the slowest one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think when we're getting to know the characters, I think it's a lot slower than them going through the desert, personally.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, there's like certain things about this movie that I didn't like super love. Again, it's gonna be nitpicky stuff, but just that didn't make me like fall in love with it. That I thought was goofy or silly. You know, where just like the Arthur, the his leg is all messed up and he just does stupid stuff to just like make it worse. It's like, you could not do that.
Yeah,
you'd be fine.
If my leg was all gangrened, I wouldn't be trying to start fist fights.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, there's like the scene where, like I said, the Nick character, when he's being brutally filleted, and Kurt Russell's just like, there's a whole cavalry coming. They're gonna avenge you. They're gonna kill all these guys. It's like, that's not gonna bring me comfort.
Yeah, but the point is that he's trying to make him feel better, but no, I don't think I wouldn't care at all.
Yeah, no.
I also wouldn't be listening.
No, like,
all
not
I could
at all.
hear is my screams.
There's no amount of like, no, there's no way that I would hear anything. Like, I think your body would go into complete shock, and like, there's just no way.
He
so
also
I thought
got
that was goofy.
Scalped right before that. I just remembered.
Yeah,
his brain was out into the world.
He got stripped down, and then he, you know,
it just shows the brutality of this tribe. But just speaking of the tribe, they're creepy as shit.
Yeah, they've got like this.
They're so scary.
Wind piece in their throats.
Yeah, sure. They scream like, I don't even know, dragons.
Yeah,
it's like crazy. I would pee my pants and run in the opposite direction before facing them. But
yeah,
they're also like really strong, and they hold multiple characters down just using like a hand or a foot.
Yeah,
and they also have like horns
embedded into them, or like the main, like the tribe leader.
I think he's cool as shit in like a horrifying way.
I don't know. I certainly would not want to come across a person like that in the wild.
No, I would be trying to kill myself before letting them eat me alive.
I think we kind of talked about that, like, because they kind of try to come up with this plan that they're going to use the opium that they have, like the opium tincture, to poison the guys, and it kind of works. They get like 2 people to drink from it, enough for one person to die and the other person to just be knocked out for hours. But like, I think I would have just used that to kill myself first. Probably. Before having, like, because if that doesn't work out, then like, I am definitely going to die.
But by the end, it semi works out. I mean, 3 characters make it out, and they kill the whole tribe. At least it's implied.
Yeah.
Given
besides
the
the
numbers.
Women. Besides the women.
Yeah, besides the women that were suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird interpretation of this tribe.
Yeah.
And I can see criticism for that, no doubt. Especially because even other tribes are like, no, we don't mess with those weirdos. Like,
yeah.
We put them there for a reason. They're inbred. They're cannibals.
No good.
No good. But I guess that could be, if we're criticizing, or like if we're painting a minority as evil, that could be negative.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought they're kind of cool in a bad way.
Right.
So it's difficult for me to judge that.
Yeah. And this one is the only one that has like a semi-happy ending where, like, sure, most of the characters do end up dead.
But the kind of morally good characters survive.
Yeah, like the wife and her husband, and then like
the deputy.
The little assistant deputy guy.
Chicory.
Yeah, where he's just kind of like, he's very simplistic, where very simple things can make him happy, like the flea circus.
He gets very happy that he thinks the flea circus is real.
Yeah.
And I think that's adorable.
Yeah. It's like, oh, cute. And he goes to visit his wife before this journey, like his dead wife He says he'll be back, and he will. Yeah, so very, very sweet. I give this a 7 out of 10 as well. Didn't like it as much as Dead Man, but definitely entertained me for 2 hours, or a little bit more than 2 hours. Don't know if I will watch it again.
I gave it a 9. Maybe there's political issues that I still need to look into. But as a movie, not as a statement, I really like it. It's bonkers, and I like that. And it kind of maintains a good story all the way through. I'm not bothered by the pacing. Again, I think it goes fast for me. But, yeah, it's not a perfect movie, definitely. And we watched it on a DVD I own, and the quality's kind of shit.
Yeah, the audio quality is really
and the
bad.
image quality too, but
image
whatever.
quality was okay.
It's a cheap DVD. I should have gotten the more expensive Blu-ray.
I suppose, but I feel like there's still no excuse, really.
I really like it. It's the movie that kind of I wanted to show you the most because I've seen all of these before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad you watched it. I'm sure you won't watch it again.
Probably not, but I appreciate that you take the time to think of movies that you want to show me, and then we watch them together.
Yeah, show movies you don't like. It's very nice of me.
No, I don't dislike them. But I just don't think that, again, Westerns are not my favorite. Horror is not my favorite.
These are Westerns. That's the point.
I know, but it's
I
still
wanted
Western
to show you
adjacent.
revisionist Westerns. Not necessarily anti-Westerns for every single one of them, but...
I'd say that they're better than traditional Westerns, to be honest. If that makes you feel better.
Sure. I'll take small victories.
All right. Well, I think that that's all that we have for this episode. So catch us next time where we'll talk about different movies.